you will agree with me that it's all also related to the liver. So I want to talk about
Mhm.
the importance of liver health, and I push people to do liver cleanses at least 4 times a year, especially with the toxins and the radiation and our food supply with those toxins and the plastics and everything else you mentioned. Our livers are so bombarded, which is affecting our hormonal production, affecting our T4 to T3 conversion for our thyroid, and then it also affects the gut. So, can you go into how the liver is related to the hormonal imbalances that people experience?
Oh, it is such a terrible thing that happens to many women's livers as they transition into menopause and the years thereafter. It turns out that there's an intimate connection. The liver is part of the gastrointestinal system. And there is a connection between what goes on in the gut itself, the intestinal tract, and the liver. And when you have dysbiotic gut microbiome, you have the wrong microbial population, then you do not have the right fermentation products, what we call short chain fatty acids. And these are critical. They're food for the lining because they're fatty acids. They also act as signaling agents to the liver, to the big vagus nerve that is the source of the parasympathetic nervous system innervation that keeps everything in a calm, sort of like peaceful state. That should be sort of the background normal state of the body. So all of that is disrupted in the woman as she transitions into menopause because of the whole problem with dysbiotic gut microbiomes. And the signaling effect also is involving the liver. So there's a big back talk. We call that the enterohepatic circulation. There's a connection, a communication system between the gut and the liver. And when you have inflammation in the gut, you end up having inflammation in the liver. And the liver becomes very dysregulated. And the liver has so many incredible functions. The liver does not get its due either, because the liver is, of course, the master detoxification organ. It's also a factory. It creates all kinds of enzymes and products that are very critical for the body as a whole. And it produces triglycerides. It's the 90% of all the cholesterol in the body is produced in the liver. The other 10% is what comes from diet. Diet is only 10% of our cholesterol level. And when you have a dysregulated, inflamed liver, also the liver is a storage site for sugar in the form of glycogen. So that's how sugar, glucose, is stored. So the liver produces glucose. It stores glucose as glycogen. It produces fats, triglycerides, cholesterol, other things, as well as all of its detoxification in critically important functions. So now you have an inflamed liver. So when it's inflamed, it goes crazy. It starts producing ridiculous amounts of cholesterol. Almost every woman, as she transitions into menopause and thereafter, has high cholesterol. I mean, it's like almost like expected, really. In addition, the liver has receptors to pull cholesterol circulating in the body out of the circulation back into the liver for disposal. And those are called LDL receptors. They require estradiol. Without enough estradiol, you can't even pull the cholesterol out. So you make too much, you can't get it out, and you put out too much glucose because you have what's called gluconeogenesis. The liver is uncontrollably producing and spewing out sugar into the blood and triglycerides, these fats. They always go together. So high triglycerides is usually indicative of too much liver spewing out of glucose as well. So all of these problems are really huge. And then the other thing that becomes very common, and it's silent until very late stage, and that is what is called non-alcoholic fatty liver. Something like close to a third of all women in menopause have this problem of the liver, which is actually now recognized as the number one cause of liver cirrhosis. So And the best way to diagnose it in practical terms is with an ultrasound, but even an ultrasound won't find it in its very, very earliest stages. But it's better, much better than looking just for liver enzyme elevations. That's a very late stage. So it's almost safe to assume that every woman who has excessive belly fat has excessive visceral fat, and that's including in internal organs. And when you have abnormal dysregulation of the adipose tissue, as I told you, the adipose tissue is regulated by estrogen. It becomes a problem of spewing out also from the liver, rather from the fat tissue, these fatty acids. And then they also go into other ectopic sites like in the muscle, in the bone marrow, even in the heart, and so on, and in the liver. So the liver becomes very dysregulated. So now a dysregulated liver is not going to go through the proper phases of detoxification well. So yes, you're going to have more difficulty getting out the enormous numbers, ubiquitous chemicals that we live in, like chemical soup, all of the phthalates, the bisphenols, the heavy metals, all of these things require the liver to actually go through the detoxification process and then to get it into the gut so that you can bind it and poop it out. And that's not going to work properly when you have a dysfunctional fatty liver and dysregulated liver. So I just like sing odes to livers. They're so critically important, so underappreciated until for many people it's too late. And it's so amazing. Like back, I don't know, like over 2,000 years ago, the Chinese recognized the importance of the liver. They talk about the qi, the liver, and they recognized and wrote about the liver not working properly and being related to, for example, Parkinson's disease. And now, finally, our modern medicine acknowledges that toxicants that are circulating that the liver is not properly dealing with, that this improper, insufficient detoxification because of liver dysfunction is underlying Parkinson's disease and other forms of dementia, because these toxicants can go right through the blood-brain barrier, which isn't much of a barrier. It gets right into the brain and creates inflammation and toxicities in the brain that can underlie these neurodegenerative diseases that are so prevalent in the aging population, and not just aging, like there are even younger people getting these things. So yes, I'm so glad you brought up the liver. So everyone should be aware of the liver and do everything to support it with nutrition and targeted supplements and detoxification, like programs like yours.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the liver. And in a couple days, I will be releasing my hot topic for the week about, it was in the news about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is becoming the number one cause of liver cancer and
Mhm.
liver transplants. So it's
Yes.
something that we all have to be aware of.